Hi, how you going? Today we're going to be making this. What is this? This is a compound bow and it is super strong. Now the reason it's called a compound bow is because of those two elastic bands. That's what gives it all the power, unlike your traditional bow. But before we can continue, I must ask, can you please like, subscribe and hit the bell notification? I'm trying to hit 500 subscribers by the end of the year and I can't do it without you. Okay, back to the video, but before I can show you the bow, I need to make it. Design. When it comes to the design, I had two designs. Design number one was built like this, but unfortunately I was afraid the arrow might get stuck in the elastic, so we went with design 2, which has two elastics, hopefully creating more power and sending the arrow flying. Step 1 is to cut out all the pieces of wood. Now you may have noticed I'm not working on a table. Yeah, I don't have any room to work on, so I'm just working in my backyard on this stool. Hopefully there's enough room and I don't regret it later. The first two pieces of wood are curved around the edge. This is so then it fits nice and snug in my hand and it's comfy to hold. I'm cutting the next two pieces now, which are going to be the limbs where the elastic and the rope is tied to. It's also going to sit in the middle of the two rounded pieces to make the handle a bit more wide. To make the bow and arrow look neater, I'm trying to curve the tips, but I'm not quite sure how to do it, as I only have two tools and that's a handsaw and a carving knife. But a mixture of the two of them got the job done. I had to do it to all pieces twice because there are two ends, so it took a very long time, and then use sandpaper to smoothen it out and make it look a little neater. The struggles of not having a workbench were very clear at this point because I kept having to put my leg over the top of the piece of wood to hold the whole thing down. I was trying to make each end as round as the other without taking too much of the material off, as I didn't want to shorten the length of the bow anymore. Quickly finishing the job by sanding it down, my dog came and had a visit and I was done and ready to move on to the next step. Unlike a traditional bow where it's all one piece that's curved, I'm going to be making it out of multiple pieces, as you can already tell. So the bow has to be held together, and the way I'm going to hold it together is with nuts and bolts, squeezing all the wood together except keeping the ends very loose so then the arms can move freely. Now I didn't really know what I was doing. I'm sure you can probably tell by the way I'm making this, so I realised halfway through doing it I could have just lined up all the pieces on top of each other and drilled through at the same time, since all the holes need to be in the same spot anyway, but I figured that one out a little bit too late. You can see the arm move freely now, but unfortunately the handle is not complete. I need to make it a little bit wider, so I grabbed one of the cut-offs from the earlier pieces and I'm going to make it the centre of the handle. I had to be sure of two things: one, to leave enough room in the middle so the arrow can fly through it, and two, to not cover the ends so the arms can still move. Lining up the two pieces and attaching them, you can start to see the shape of the bow really coming through, especially when you add on the arms. Now I have to drill one hole at each end of the arms so then we can attach the elastic and the cord. I started drilling, but I wasn't too sure what size hole we would need for the elastic. So I drew one hole, check with the elastic, and then if it wasn't big enough, I'll drill another hole. But unfortunately, the drill died. I was impatient, I took the drill out and went and found another one. This one was way stronger, and I should have just waited for it to charge, because after finding the right size on one piece of wood, disaster struck and I broke the other arm. But this wasn't going to stop me. Although it had snapped, it was fixable. So the first thing I did was I sanded it down, removing any splinters. I grabbed the PVA glue, covering this thing in glue, making sure it's going to be super strong when it's fixed. I also wrapped it in the same cord I'm going to use later. I did a few more layers of glue and a few more layers of cord, and then I had to leave it to dry. To save time, I started making the arrows. To make the arrows, I flattened some spoons and then proceeded to cut them into a triangle shape, kind of like the point of an arrow. I cut some more wood and then proceeded to split the wood with one of my carving knives, being very careful not to cut myself. I then pushed the arrow tip into the split wood and tied some more of the cord around it, trying to seal it as much as possible. I had to tie it as tight as I could, as the last thing we wanted is for one of those arrowheads to fly off and break something. I had to seal the rope back onto itself to make sure it wouldn't come undone when we're using it. And then it was done. It was very sharp and ready to go. I had to make another arrow, as I felt one arrow wasn't enough, and this arrow turns out way better than the other. I flattened it more, and when I had finished cutting it out, I decided to add on 2 extra divots to help it hold in place more. I detached it from the rest of the spoon, making the arrow tip not too long, and then proceeded to cut open another bit of wood. I wore a safety glove this time just in case. I added a little bit of PVA to hold it in even tighter this time. Wrapping the cord around the exact same way, but making sure to take advantage of those divots I added in, and this arrow turned out fantastic. I then sealed it like I did with the other one, and there was one final step to finish these arrows. And that final step is to carve out a divot in the end of the arrow, which will assist with shooting the arrow later on. Enough time had passed now, so I went to check on the broken part of the bow. And it turns out very well. I was quite happy with it. Unfortunately, the drilling wasn't done yet. I still had to make 2 more holes, so I started drilling. But this time I started with a smaller drill piece, working my way up on both pieces as that didn't snap the other piece earlier. And it turned out great, nothing broke and I was very happy. So it was time to quickly just clean it up with some sandpaper and test to see if everything would fit. Luckily the elastic fit and I didn't have to make any more adjustments. So I started assembling the bow, placing all the pieces together, and it was time to measure the elastic. After cutting the first piece, I squeezed it through the holes and I had to tie a knot on the end on each side so then it wouldn't come loose when I'm using it. You can start to see the mechanism working now, and I started working on the second piece, but unfortunately when the wood split it didn't cut perfectly, so I had to get my carving knife out and fix the rest of it. After doing that, the elastic slid in perfectly and I tied another knot. I then put it in the other end and tied a 4th knot. I then started assembling the bow for hopefully the last time, placing all the washers on and making sure everything fit perfectly. I was terrified that the first time I used the bow the elastics would snap, swing back and hit me, but I guess we're gonna have to see. It was finally time to add the last component, and that was the cord. I snipped the cord and started tying it off on each end, making sure to tie lots of knots so then it wouldn't come undone. Now I'm no master at tying knots, so I just tied as many as I could, before then cutting the rope short, and it was done. But when I first started using it, I noticed it wasn't strong enough, so I went back and decided to tie off a little bit more of the elastic just to make it a bit stronger, and that did the trick. It was way stronger now. And now it was time, finally, to shoot the arrow. And I messed up. Okay, let's try that again. It's finally time to shoot the bow for the first time. This thing was so much stronger than I thought it was going to be. I set up this cardboard target, it went straight through it. I mean, that's no surprise. This thing was so strong. I had a blast making it. It was so much fun and I had a great time using it as well. Now, this thing works great, but my aim is terrible, so just ignore my aim. If you guys enjoy these kind of videos, make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and if you have any more ideas of things I could make, leave them in the comments below, because I'm keen to make more. If you guys want to see a video of me improving my accuracy and using the bow, make sure to leave a like. If I get 50 likes, I'll make sure to make another video on it. Thanks for watching.